And I'm going to, there you go. So we are now recording. If you would prefer to not be on here while it's being recorded, you're welcome. We're going to be recording, and the session will be available online for you to look at later if you prefer not to be here. A copy of the slides will also be available. And all of this information is going to be housed at our grants page at frederickcountygives.org/grants. It'll take you to everything you need to know. During this particular session, we're going to have everybody started off on mute. We have more people here than we usually have, so but take yourself off mute anytime you want. Feel free to add questions into the chat. We're going to be monitoring that. And please stop me at any time. So once I get on a roll, I can start going, and I encourage you to stop me as you need to. We have a large range of folks on this call, from people who may never have submitted applications to the Community Foundation before, to some of our seasoned veterans in the process. And questions can come up at any point in the process. At any point in time, if you're having technical difficulties during the presentation, you can contact Mark at our office number or through his email address. It is listed below. For those who may not be able to see the slide, Mark's phone number is 301-695-7665. Or you can reach him at his email address, the letter m.kamie@frederickcountygives.org. And so I know we've had a few people join us since we started talking. If you wouldn't mind adding your name and organization to the chat, we want to make sure that we know that you're here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda for today, we're going to be talking about some of the opportunity basics for our strategic grants. We're going to be talking about the funding priorities that for this particular grant opportunity. We're going to look at some of the grant expectations of what we're expecting you to be able to provide within the grant process. We're also going to talk a little bit about what happens after you hit submit. And then at the end of the session, we have all of our applications are required to be submitted online, and we use a grants management system called Foundit. And if you have not used Foundit before or would like a refresher, please feel free to stay on and we'll walk through some basics with you. But this is completely optional. So stay if you'd like, but it's okay if you drop out too. So any questions about our agenda right now? No? Okay. So let's talk about the basics. Again, we have some folks on here who may not be familiar with the Community Foundation. So first and foremost, we'd like to introduce who we are. So the Community Foundation, we are a local nonprofit organization. We are a grant-making entity. So we provide scholarships to students and grants to nonprofits. And our whole goal is to create a more positive and vibrant community for Frederick County. And we happy to have you here and be a part of that process. Oh, and I also wanted to add, I'm sorry, before we go any further, my computer has been having some technical issues. It has not been wanting to cooperate over the past week. So it's possible that there may be some technical difficulties. We're hoping that we've gotten it all taken care of and we'll be fine for this particular session, but hold on. If something happens, know that it's not you, it's us, and that I'll be back online as soon as possible. But specifically for our strategic grant initiatives this year, we are going to be providing program operating grants that are based on our strategic initiatives that were identified in 2009, with some preferences from the overlay that was done in 2022. And we're going to get into all of that information later, but that's the summary. We're going to have at least $500,000 available in funding. There's no cap on the amount of funding that is available or the amount that you request. It is unlikely if you ask for $500,000 that you will be provided a $500,000 grant. Generally speaking, we receive grant requests between $15,000 and $50,000, and that seems to be pretty average for our strategic grants. We have funded less, we have funded more, and we also provide partial funding. So if you request $65,000 and we're only able to give you 50, we will still go ahead and provide that 50 if that will be a meaningful grant for you. We do accept multiple applications. So if you have multiple programs that you would like to have supported under the different categories, we do allow for that. And again, that website, it's going to keep popping up today. It's the frederickcountygives.org/grants. You're going to find a lot of this information there. So some of the important dates to keep in mind for this, the application is opening soon. It will be open July 15th through August 15th. So it will close at 11:59 on August 15th. We don't suggest that you wait until close to midnight to submit the application, but you do have that option available to you if that's when you work, that's when your best work happens. The award notifications will come out in end of September, beginning of October. The spending period for this particular grant, because there's some of our larger grants, we do have an extended spending period. So you will be able to start spending those dollars from November 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. So you can spend all of your money within the first 3 months of the grant period. You can stretch it out over the full period of the spending period. It's up to you and what the needs are for your organization. We will have 2 reports that are going to happen during the grant period. In July of 2024, we will be conducting site visits, so you won't have to provide anything written at that time, but we will have representatives from the Community Foundation either meeting with you virtually or in person. The choice will be up to you to talk about progress on the programs that were funded, and then we will have a final report in April of 2025, where you'll have to provide both program information as well as fiscal information about the grant. About the grant that you received. So eligible activities, this is important. Everything that we fund here is going to be related to our strategic initiatives and the overlay from 2022. And the services have to be focused on Frederick County. They have to provide direct benefits to Frederick County residents. You can be located in any part of Maryland or any part of the United States, but there has to be measurable impact for Frederick County residents for the work that you're doing. Again, eligible organizations. You have to be serving Frederick County residents. You can be a 501c3 or a nonprofit that's in good standing. You could be a civic organization that's working on a charitable project, a religious organization doing non-sectarian projects, or quasi-governmental or governmental agency. All of those types of organizations can apply through this funding stream. Specifically for 501c3, in good standing has specific meaning for the Community Foundation. First, we have a 3-point test for our due diligence. One is with the IRS. So have you followed your 990s? This is something that we can look at online. It's important to follow your 990s on an annual basis because that's what helps you keep your 501c3 status with the IRS. It's basic, but it's an important reminder because we have had people forget. Additionally, there are 2 divisions within the state of Maryland. We have the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation and the Maryland Secretary of State. So if you incorporated as an organization in Maryland, you already are familiar with the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation. So they're the ones that you sent the paperwork into that says, I want to exist as an entity within the state of Maryland. So because you want to exist as an entity within the state of Maryland that can do business in Maryland, you have to file an annual report. That report is due April 15th every year. You can file an extension for up to 60 days, but that's just something that you should have on your calendar as a task for things to do. And this is where when you hear people talk about being in good standing, this is what they're talking about. If you filed your annual report with the Department of Assessment and Taxation, you are in good standing with the state of Maryland, and you can continue to conduct business in the state of Maryland. For the Maryland Secretary of State, they have there's a Solicitations Act within the state of Maryland, and you have to register as a charity if you're going to be asking people for money or asking grant-making organizations for money in the state of Maryland. So there's an initial registration that you have to do after you've been in existence for a year, and then you have to file an annual report. And that annual report is due 90 days after the end of your fiscal year. So it'll be different for each different organization, depending on what your fiscal year is. I will tell you that both of these entities, the Department of Assessment and Taxation and the Secretary of State, are backlogged on processing any paper applications that they receive. If it is best to file electronically, and there are folks who are on here that will also tell you that even if you file electronically, things can get weird. So please feel free to check as needed and as frequently as you need to, just to make sure that you and the state of Maryland are on the same page. And so within the up here, you will see that we have the direct links to the websites that we use to check whether you're in compliance with the state of Maryland. Again, these slides will be available later, so you'll be able to make direct links to those. The business entity search for the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation is pretty easy to find. The Secretary of State Charities Public Registry is more difficult to find, and they don't have a very friendly URL. So we're happy to provide that to any organization that may want it. There will also be links to both of these websites within the application itself. So you'll have access to it in a couple of different ways. So that's a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions about due diligence? So, and all of this is important for the 501c3s on the call, because if you're not in compliance with any of these three pieces, the IRS, the Department of Assessment and Taxation, or the Secretary of State, will not be able to consider your application for funding. So, so it's important information for you to know. So any questions right now? Okay. So next we're going to talk about funding priorities. And so this is where we're going to talk about the types of programs that we're looking to support within the strategic funding process. So back in 2018 and 2019, the Community Foundation commissioned a human needs assessment report to be completed. And from that report, there were three issues that our Board of Trustees decided that they would like to focus on. One is supporting families with children. Two is preparing for a growing aging population. And three is supporting individuals impacted by substance use disorder. If you want to learn more about what that assessment looked like, there's a link at the bottom of the page where you can learn more about that. And if you have any questions about that study, it is available for everyone. And for those organizations that are seeking funding with other funders out in the community, you're welcome to use the data and the findings from the human needs assessment to help support your grant applications to other entities. It's there for you to use. More specifically for the supporting families with children, we are looking for organizations that are continuing or increasing opportunities for all families with children to thrive in Frederick County. And we also have a specific focus on those programs that are addressing stability and opportunities for growth for ALICE households. So ALICE, for those who may not be familiar, are asset limited income constrained employed households. And there's a lot of great information about that on the United Way of Frederick County's website. If you're not familiar with that terminology. Next, we have the preparing for a growing aging population. We're specifically looking for projects that are helping seniors age in place or age in place in the most optimal environment. So it could be modifying their current housing to help them be able to be functional and safe within that space. It could also mean helping them move to a more appropriate environment if their current housing is no longer able to serve them. We're also looking to support programs that are helping to create people who are going into being seniors and people who are currently seniors and their caregivers, giving them access to information and helping to support them in a broad way. So we want to make sure people are informed of what their options are, what the services are available, and how they can receive support within the community. For our substance use disorder strategic initiative, we want to increase treatment and recovery options for people who are experiencing substance use disorder. We want to provide education and prevention programs. And then we also want to help strengthen any data collecting systems that organizations have, or that network of organizations want to use to help strengthen the type of data that is able to be collected around substance use disorder within the community. So when you're looking at those last three slides, we do use the words continue or increase, and this is just a definition slide, so you know what we mean when we say continue or increase. It can either be you're already providing an essential service and you just want to maintain that current level of service. It could also mean either growing that level of service or starting a different type of service if you're increasing the capacity. So both of those things are equally valid within this particular grant application. It doesn't need to be existing programs. It also doesn't need to be, you don't need to necessarily be in a growth mindset. You could just be doing need support for what the services you're currently providing. So that brings us to our funding overlay. So we had grand plans in 2018, 2019. We had done this study. It was the second one that we had done. We were confident that we were going to be able to use these findings for the next 5 to 10 years to be able to steer the work that we're going to be doing. And then COVID hit, and like everyone else, our plans got changed. So we decided in 2022 to do an update to our human needs assessment. We didn't have access to a lot of the quantitative data. A lot of that is still rolling in because it's delayed by a number of years. Like this is all the third-party data, so census information and things that we would be getting about our community from third-party sources. So we really looked at what's going on within our local community and doing a qualitative update. And within that particular update, we found, to no surprise to anybody on this call, that mental health was one of the primary issues that has really become an urgent need. Well, it was urgent before the pandemic, and now it's reached a whole new level of crisis. Affordable housing is also one of those issues that has bubbled to the surface even more urgently than before. And then additionally, we are looking at disparities. So these are all the social determinants of health, how traditionally marginalized communities within Frederick County are being provided access and support. And so what does that mean when we're trying to combine those three strategic funding areas along with these three overlays? So within the work that we do, you as an organization are going to be submitting an application into one of the big strategic initiative areas. So you're going to be applying under families with children, you're going to be applying under substance use disorder, or you're going to be applying under the aging population priorities. And so those three initial strategic initiative areas from 2019 are still the big buckets. What's going to happen is we have additional questions on the application that deal with mental health, affordable housing, and disparities within the community. And those questions on the application are optional. You don't have to answer them. But those organizations that do answer those questions and are providing targeted services around these particular areas are going to have a preference in the consideration process for funding than all the other applications. And so that's just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about what programs that you're interested in having funded. So I'm going to pause there because, again, that's a lot of information. Are there any questions right now? Okay, I'm hearing none, and I'm not sure if there's any in the chat right now, but again, chat away if you need to, and shout things out. All right, and so now we're going to get into what it actually looks like within the grant application. This doesn't cover every single question that's within the grant application, but there is going to be program. These are some of the big things that you're going to want to have prepared as you're going in. So there are four main things that we want you to be able to discuss. We want you to be able to talk about outcomes, indicators, and activities, and evaluation. So the outcomes are that long-term, what if everything you're doing is successful, what is the world going to look like? So what do you want to achieve? And we're talking 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years in the future. What is your goal that you want to achieve? What change do you want to see? The indicators are those things that show that you're making an impact now. What can you see over the year plus of this particular grant that you know is going to change for your participants that you can talk to us about? So those are the indicators, things that are more current, that show the steps that are happening. And the activities are actually the things that you're going to do. So the case management that you're going to provide, or the number of training sessions that you're going to have, or the number of people you're going to house. Like this is all of the outputs. And that's another word that you may hear, are outputs. So activities and outputs are kind of the same thing. And then the evaluation piece is how you're going to measure it. So let me give you an example to help try and make that a little bit clearer. So this is for the aging population. So an outcome could be all seniors are fully engaged community members. And for indicators, you see that there's one indicator around social isolation and one indicator around activities are outside of their home. And so these are two things that we can measure in the short term that indicate that you are working towards this outcome of all seniors being fully engaged community members. Another thing to note is that 50% is kind of middle of the road. You know, we're not expecting that every single person that walks through your door is going to achieve 100% of the outcomes and indicators that you would like to see. We know that people come to your services where they're at, and your particular interventions may or may not be successful for that particular individual. So don't feel like you need to have 100% or 90% as an indicator to be a successful program. We know you're going to have mixed results. We just want you to tell us what the accurately what your program is going to be doing and what your expectations are. And then activities for this particular program is that they're providing transportation to seniors in rural communities. And it tells us how many seniors they're going to be serving. And then the evaluation piece is they're tracking the number of rides per senior, and they're also tracking changes in attitude and isolation. For the evaluation piece, that's going to look different for every organization. So there are going to be some organizations that are small and have a limited amount of staffing and capacity to do evaluation. We're still in order to receive grant funding from this particular application process, you are going to need to show that you're engaging in evaluation of some kind. You have to be trying to figure out in some systemic and standardized way what is happening to the people you are serving. So if you're not able to do that within the work that you're doing, this may not be the best application for you to receive or for you to apply to, because that is going to be an important part of our review process. So how are you evaluating, how are you measuring the things that are happening? So, and again, we also have questions that are specific to that 2022 overlay. Again, these are going to be optional questions. You do not have to answer them. They just create preferences within our review process. And if you answer one, you don't have to answer all of them. You can answer the ones that are applicable to your organization. So there's a place for you to talk about affordable housing access and the way you're addressing it. Addressing mental health needs, and also a couple of questions regarding how disparities in equity are being addressed by your organization. So a big question that you should ask is whether or not you should answer these questions, because every single program and every single person that is on this particular call, the work that you're doing is helping people address their mental health in some way. Like, you're making people feel better, you're making people feel hopeful. And the same could be said is you may be helping impact their capacity to stay stable in housing or do other sorts of things. But we really want you to answer these questions. If this particular overlay, affordable housing, mental health, DEI, if those are part of your program or organizational planning, and are you measuring those impacts? So if you are a mental health provider that knows the mental health work that you're doing is allowing people to be stable in housing, that's great, but are you measuring it? So if you're not measuring it, it's probably not something that's not something that you need to answer within this particular application, because we want to make sure it's not just a byproduct of the work that you're doing, that it's a deliberate and intentional piece of the services that you are providing. Does that make sense, that delineation? Okay, insofar as I can see the group, I'm seeing some nods. So so we're going to keep going. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the financial information that is required. First off is a project or program budget. So this is, again, budgets. These are projection of future revenue and expenses for the work that you're going to be doing. And again, this is a projection. We know that things can change. We are not the organization where you need to submit requests for changes if you're moving $100 from one line item to the next. That is not what we do. We know that stuff happens, but we still want you to be able to estimate what your revenue and what your expenses are going to be over the period of time that this project or program is going to be running. We also don't have a required format. So whatever your bookkeeper, accounting department, however your organization is already tracking income and expenses or revenue and expenses, just use that particular reporting system. You don't have to make it bend to ours. We just need to know what all the income is going to be, and we'd prefer to know if it's committed or pending. And we know a lot of it is going to be pending because we're asking you to project in the future, and you haven't passed these grant deadlines yet. We also want to know what your projected expenses are going to be by line item. We don't just want to see, food program, $10,000. We would need to know, is that going into salary? Is that going into purchase of foods? Is that going into equipment? Other operating expenses like rent or utilities, those sorts of things. They should also be noted that those general operating expenses are totally allowable. Really, the only thing that we are not interested and not able to fund are non-cash expenses, so like depreciation, that sort of stuff, and unrelated operating expenses. So if you're an organization that has multiple different programs and you apply for program A, for support, you can only use program A's expenses as for this particular grant. You can't then apply to program C and D, because that's where you need more money at the time. So, and another important thing to note is that your budget helps tell your story. So provide the detail that you need so that somebody who is not familiar with your program can look at your budget and say, okay, they're getting income, they're getting revenue from a couple of different streams of funding, and their expenses are, mostly about salary or kind of spread out between these particular types of expenses, and we know where the money is going to go. So somebody should be able to walk away from your budget and understand more about your program than they did before they looked at your budget. And so what does that kind of look like? So these are some tips of things that you need that should be provided. When you submit the budget in the online application, you're going to be uploading a document. Make sure the name of your organization is on that document, because the way that our system works, when a grant committee member looks at the application, if they download that document, it's not going to be connected to your application anymore. It's going to be a separate free floating document on their computer. And so you're going to want to make sure that as they are looking through multiple budgets and multiple program documents, that they're always going to be able to say, okay, this is the budget that belongs to this particular organization. You're also going on to specify what are the start and end dates of the budget that you're looking at. Again, you can spend the money anytime in the particular grant period. You just need to be able to tell us and articulate what the start and end dates of that spending period is for you. So when are you spending the money? And then we need to know by line what the income looks like, again, what the revenue looks like. And you'll see that there's a note section to talk about pending or awarded. And then for expenses, again, break it out by line item, but then also those notes are important. So for your particular program, are you funding a supervisor? Are you funding 5 different program direct line workers? Are you funding general operating expenses? We need to know what those expenses, what our grant dollars are going to be helping to support. So any questions about program or project budget? So I will say for those organizations that are small or are single purpose, and I don't know if Blessings in a Backpack is on the call, but I'm going to pick on them because they are an organization where the only thing that they do is provide food in weekend backpack programs. And so their program budget is essentially their organizational budget. And so depending on what your organization is going to be applying for, it could be that you're submitting your organizational budget, not just a project budget. So if you're confused about that or wondering what to submit, please get in contact with us and we can talk you through that. So just know that that's a possibility depending on the needs and what you're applying for and the needs of your organization. And then another important thing is in your budget, you're going to be projecting out into the future. And if you are projecting that you're going to have a large deficit from the program, which happens sometimes because you're launching a new program, you don't have it fully funded yet, you're going to be calling on money from reserves, or you are going to be upping your fundraising game. Those are all things that could happen. So if there is going to be a deficit, we just want an explanation of how you're going to address that. If that's an intentional thing, if that's we want to start this program because we see how important it is, and we're going to work to find the funding, we just need to know. The same goes for a surplus. If you're asking us for $50,000 and your program already has a surplus of $100,000, we're going to want to know why our grant is necessary for a program that's running a surplus. And so this is a chance for you your budget is a chance for you to explain why that would still be necessary. So next, we have the required organizational financial information. So this particular financial information, this is where you're giving us information about your organization as a whole. And it's really a record of how you have spent your money in the past. So what were the revenues and expenses looking backwards for the organization? And it's also a snapshot of your current financial position. So what liabilities do you have, what assets, those sorts of things. And we have 3 different levels of requirements for what format that financial information needs to look like. So if you have less than $300,000 in annual charitable contributions, we do have a set financial form that you can fill out, and it will be available within the application as a link. And if you need us to provide it to you in any other sort of file type, just let us know. If your organization it receives between $300,000 and $750,000, and we are expecting that an independent financial review will be submitted. And this is where a CPA who lives outside of your organization takes a look at your books and says, this looks like is or is not conforming to standard operating procedures for accounting practices. The next level so the important thing is that it has to be somebody outside of your organization. It can't be your treasurer. The last level of need is if your organization is receiving over $750,000, we're expecting that you're going to be going through a full financial audit. So that means that there is a CPA group that is going in and taking a look at specific transactions and doing some means testing and other things within, basically just taking a deep dive into your financials to see if you are to see how you're doing with the handling of funds. Does anybody have questions about these particular levels of support or these levels of review? No. Okay. So let's talk about what happens after you hit submit. So this is the general timeline. So the application will close on August 15th. There's going to be a period of review. The staff will review on a level, and we also have a grants committee of volunteers from the local community who review, rank, and review the applications, and they will be making the recommendations for funding levels. The end of September, beginning of October, you are going to receive an approval or denial notification via email about your grant. At the end of October, if you do receive a grant from us, we're going to need your grant agreement to be submitted. Again, November 1st is when the grant year begins. So obviously for some programs, you're already in existence, so that date is irrelevant. For other organizations, that will be important because that's when these particular services can start. Just know that we don't do back. This grant is not meant to support expenses that have happened in the past. So these are for expenses that are accrued by your organization from November 1st on. And then in November, December, we're going to distribute your grant disbursement. And so it's going to come in whole. So the money is coming up front within the process, and you'll be doing financial reporting on the back end. Again, in July and August of 2024, there will be site visits, virtual or in person. And then in March, the 2025, that's the last day of the grant period. And then in April, the final report will be due.
Diana, we did have a question come up in chat from
Sure.
Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what is meant by annual charitable contributions? What constitutes that for our total annual revenue? So
charitable contributions, those are, I'm in a training right now. So those particular charitable contributions, that means any individual gifts you're getting, but it also is related to grants. So if you're receiving grant revenues, it's essentially any revenues outside of business expenses or business revenue.
Thank you, Diana. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any other questions at the moment? Okay. So, pro tips when you're looking at this application, all of our communications related to these applications are going to be sent via email. So this is a good time to look at your organizational profile within Foundant and the contact information for your organization in Foundant, and make sure that it's up to date. So, because everything is going to be going out through the email information that is saved within the system. Also note that the emails from us are going to be coming from the email that is on this particular slide. So administrator@grantinterface.com. So you're going to want to make sure that that particular email address is on your safe sender list or equivalent, or you're just regular checking your spam or junk email for that particular emails from that particular sender, because that is us. It's just coming from, it's just an automated email that's coming from within Foundant, our online grants management system. Also, something to note for this particular application, we have set our character limits as large as they can go. Your responses to the questions do not need to take up all 10,000 characters in each of those response areas. Please don't. Please don't. We leave it open in case you need that space. We want you to have the freedom and the ability to be able to respond to the questions in full. However, we are not anticipating that you're going to need to use that space for every single question. So keep it concise. Recognize the fact that the reviewers that are going to be looking at your application are engaged in the local community and may or may not have experience in the particular types of programs that you are providing. So aim at explaining your organization to somebody who does not work in the field that you work in. So that means avoiding jargon. If you have to use jargon related to your program, explain what it means. If you're going to be using any abbreviations, make sure that you're spelling them out the first time you use them. As the daughter of a chef, for me personally, I was in my teens before I really recognized that CIA meant something other than Culinary Institute of America. So just make sure everyone has a different frame of reference. So your abbreviations are not somebody else's abbreviations. Make sure they know what you're talking about. And also make sure that people are able to understand the impact that your program is having. One of the other things that I wanted to mention is that we use Candid's GuideStar to look at your compliance with IRS guidelines. And Candid GuideStar, each of your organizations, whether you know it or not, if you're a 501c3, is on GuideStar and is available as public information for people to look up. So they are going to be, so your 990s are available, as well as whether or not you're in compliance with IRS guidelines. And so this is something for you to know about, but it's also something to know that you can claim your profile on GuideStar and include information about your organization in GuideStar. So you can enter your mission, you can enter program information, and those sorts of things. And so because GuideStar is a place where other funders besides us also go to look for information about your organization. So I know some of you are juggling profiles in a couple of different charity navigator sort of places, but this is something that is used by a local organization, local funders. Additionally, Candid and Foundant can talk to each other. So there are places within our application where you can hit the copy from Candid button, and it will automatically update or populate the information that you have on Candid into your application within the Community Foundation. And I know that the local funders are talking about relying on fields within Candid as much as possible, so you don't have to duplicate information. So you update Candid and can download a lot of that repetitive information, and you don't have to type it out all over again. So any questions there?
There's a question, just a comment in chat. It's from Tamara. We have had funders tell us they only make grants to those nonprofits with GuideStar/Candid Gold or Platinum rating, so it can really make a difference.
Yes, so yeah, so that is something that other funders are looking to. We don't have any particular restrictions at this time, but it is something that other people will be, other funders will be paying more attention to. So next, as you're moving forward, once the application launches, directions can be directed to myself or to Mark Kamey, who's monitoring the chat and voice you just heard. Mark is our Foundant guru, so if you need organizational updates, you're having trouble getting into the application or any of those sorts of things, Mark would be the one that you would want to contact. You could email me, but I'm going to direct you to Mark anyway. So you can save yourself a step by just contacting him directly. If you have questions about budgets or fit or whether or not this would be a good grant opportunity for your organization, I'm happy to help you walk through those particular types of questions. I will note that I am out of the office the last week of July, so I will not be available for questions at that time. But I'm happy to answer questions outside of that particular week. So that's the end of our presentation for our strategic grants. For those who may be looking for additional grant opportunities, we do have our impact grant training on August 9th at 12 p.m. It's going to be another noon event. And we will be sending out notification about this so that people can go ahead and register. But we just wanted to give you a save the date to let you know that that's going to be coming up too. So, and at this particular point, we're going to go on to the founded portion of the day. So if anybody needs information about logging in, what it looks like, those sorts of things, refresher on that sort of stuff, we'd be happy to do that. But I do want to pause for a minute to see if there are any other questions, comments, additional needs.
Then a question came in directly to me about making this available for folks. This presentation will be uploaded to our website, and there will be a link on our website. If you wanted the PowerPoint presentation, just email me. I'll be happy to send it to you.
Mm-hmm. And then additionally, for those who have been asking for it, we are going to be making a Word document version of the application available so that you'll be able to download that from our website as well, to be able, because we know it's easier to do character counts within Word than it is trying to do it within Fountain itself. So be looking for that. That will be posted later this week or early next week.
Anna, this is Tamara with Case, and I just had a question for the overlays. Is there more detail? I mean, mental health is a broad bucket. I'm great. I'm so thrilled that it's a priority, but is there something, or maybe even something on the website that gives kind of a little deeper dive on the overlay areas of need? Just, you know, give us insights.
Yes, again, yes, because mental health, affordable housing disparities, those are all of the huge topics and can cover a range of different services. And there is more information about the study that was conducted and that was found. And let me see, sorry for making anybody dizzy. Let me get back to, if you go to our human needs assessment page, you will be able to see our original needs assessment from 2019, as well as the update that was provided in 2022, and we'll give you more information about what was found and kind of what the needs are. But for this particular grant opportunity, we left it pretty broad because we know that there are organizations that are going to be addressing mental health in a variety of different ways, and so we wanted to leave that open for folks to be able to do that. So it could apply for people who are providing direct services to licensed clinical therapy, all the way up to folks that are doing more peer recovery and support programs. So it really just depends on the program. But so we don't really have any additional narrowing of that particular piece within the grant application, but you can get more information about what we were looking at through the needs assessment reports.
And Diana, there was another question that popped up about overlays with regards to the impact grant cycle. And this came from Caitlin. Will the fall impact grants also have overlay priorities? No,
they will not. So the impact grant cycle is a whole other different type of grant process. In organizations will be applying to specific funds within the application, and those funds will have criteria of their own. So there are some that support programs for youth. There are some funds that support programs for the arts. And so you as an organization will be applying to those particular funds, but we don't have those overlay priorities are are not going to be preferenced within the impact grant cycle. But great question. Any additional questions right now? All right. Well, it was great to see everyone again. We are going to go, sorry for making everybody dizzy. Now, if you would like to drop off, you are welcome to do so, and we'll go on to the online portion of it. So thanks for being here. And I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint, and I'm going to start sharing hold on a second, let me get to the right one. Can you now see the Community Foundation logo that says Community Foundation and login, and then there's a watermark that says Sandbox?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Thanks. So this is, I am going into to demonstrate some things. I'm going into our demo site. So the things that I'm showing you on here are going to look the same. You're just not going to see that sandbox across it all. It's still going to have a logo that says the Community Foundation of Frederick County, and you're going to log in with your email address and password. So thanks everyone for sticking on and learning a little bit about Foundant. This is an online grants management system that the Community Foundation uses to support all of our grant making activities, or competitive grant making activities. This particular software is also used by other local funders like the Delaplane Foundation, the Osherman Family Foundation, as well as the county's community grants program. And the Serenity Foundation, and now I'm missing somebody, United Way, also uses Foundant for their grant making purposes. And so it's going to look familiar to folks if you've been using those other systems. It's just going to be tailored to the questions that we need within the Community Foundation. So when you hit login, or within our, actually, hold on. I'm going to do something here. So within the Community Foundation, can you guys now see our page, our website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So on our website, there are a couple of places where you can get to our login page. So one is up top at the right, there's a login menu. And if you go to Grant Application Portal, it takes you to our grant application portal. Additionally, if you're already going into grants and you're already here on this page, if you go down to how to apply, and there's a link to create an account in Foundant, and it'll take you to the login page. So this is our page. This is where everything happens. So pretty much anytime you see an apply or click here to apply, this is the page that's going to take you to. So back to our sandbox. So a couple things about the login page. And we have fewer organizations on here, so please feel free to step in. Have all of you, how many people within this particular group don't have a profile on the website at all, or on Foundant for the Community Foundation? So is there anybody on here? Okay, I see one raised hand. Okay, so I know at least one person has not done this before. So if you've not created a profile yet, the thing that you're going to want to do is hit this button down here that says create new account. And if you click on that, it's going to ask you a whole lot of information about the organization that you're going to be applying under, as well as contact information and user information. You may, if you are applying and you type in an EIN number or a tax ID number, and a message may pop up that says this tax ID number is already being used. Please contact us, because that means somebody may have applied from your organization a while ago, and that login information just hasn't been shared. So that will be your first step. Before anything else can happen, if you're applying for the first time to the Community Foundation, you're going to have to set up your own profile. So even if you've applied to any of those other local funders that are using the same software, we all have our own portals, and we all have our own accounts. So you're going to need to go in and create another account with us, even though we use the same type of software. So if you're going back here, so let's say you're signing in for the first time and you totally forget your password, or it's been 12 months since you've done this. Your best friend here is the forget your password link. It's going to get you a new password very simply, and we never have to touch it, and you don't have to wait for us to contact you about it. We can manually reset your password, because it has happened where people have tried to enter in their password too many times and it's frozen, and you can't press the forgot your password button anymore. So please contact us at that time and we can reset it for you, but that will only happen during normal business hours, during normal business week. So just know that could be an issue. And if you're struggling with your password, you can just click forget your password, and Foundit allows you to re-enter the same password. So it's not going to ding you if you happen to enter the same or something similar that what your password was. You'll be able to just go ahead and reuse the password. So within Foundit, everyone's going to have a dashboard, but my administrator password dashboard looks a little bit different. So now I'm logged in as an applicant. And so this is what your dashboard is going to look at. And anytime you're lost in the system, you don't know where to go, you want to get back to this, you're going to hit this icon here. That's the home icon. That's going to take you back to your dashboard. So when in doubt, click this. If you click the Community Foundation's icon, that's going to take you to our website, and it's not going to be particularly helpful to for your purposes, but it's there in case you want to check that out. But this particular button will take you back to your home screen. It's going to tell you who's currently logged in, the organization that you're logging in under. And it's going to let you know if you have any active requests and what the process is. And so the process for this one is going to be our FY24 strategic grant. And it's going to let you know what the decision is. And right now, you'll see that if it says undecided, it means the process hasn't closed yet. And then there's also a tab for historical requests. So things that have closed out, that if you no longer need to submit reports for anything like that, are going to be under your historical request tabs. Okay. So if you want to apply to a new, if you want to apply for new funding or a new grant opportunity, you're going to go up to the apply button. And if you click apply here, you're going to see all of our open grant opportunities, and you're going to see this blue apply button. That's to the side. So it's going to be the name of the process. And again, this is our demo site. So it's going to say FY24 strategic grant. And it's going to tell you what the application period is. And if you click apply, it's going to open up an application for you to fill out. And so this is the part where you start answering all of the questions. Again, there's going to be a Word document. So if you need to download something and look at it off of a website, then you are free to do that. And the thing that you want to do is very important, is that at the bottom here, there is a save application. Two very important pieces. So save application and submit application. Unfortunately, they're right next to each other. So if you hit submit application, if you haven't uploaded all of the things that will prevent you from submitting, but let's say you submitted accidentally, you can contact us and we can remit it back to you so you can continue editing it as you need to. But if you save the application, and I have no idea why that is popping up, but here we are. excuse us. So that will not come to you. So, and the application, once you save it, it will tell you all the things that need to be completed in order for you to be able to submit it. And so obviously it's everything in this particular case. And then once you go back to, so once you're in the application, you'll be able to edit as you need to. And we're going to go back to some of these buttons that are up at the top. But let's say that you started it, you saved it, but you can't finish it right away. And more than likely, you're going to have to come back to it a couple of times. The thing that you're going to want to do when you log back in is go to your history or go to your dashboard and look at your existing things. So look at the processes you already have open, and you're going to edit the application from there. If you go in and you click apply and you hit that apply button again, it's going to populate a whole new application. So it's going to look like it hasn't saved everything, and you're going to have multiple applications in your list. Does that make sense? So once you've hit the blue apply button, that's it. You don't want to do that again. You're always going to want to access the application through your dashboard and through the edit application button. Okay. And so once you go in and click edit application, it's going to pop up again. And this is where we talked about the candid guide star pieces. So you see up here, there's copy candid profile. And if you scroll down to the bottom, or within our grant application, we have a section where when you click on the copy candid button, it's going to automatically take information from Candid that's available for this particular organization and populate it into all the things that have the yellow C next to it. In this particular instance, again, this is our test site. It's a test organization. It doesn't actually exist, so I can't show you what it looks like when it copies it. But if it's on the information, if it's on the Candid website, it will populate into these fields. But please also know that the fields are still editable. So if you copy information in there and it turns out you need to update something, you can still do that from in here, even after you've copied the application, even after you've copied the information. The other thing to make note of within our application is that you can collaborate with people. So whatever your role is within your organization, you may be the one that's coordinating this grant process, but you may need information from other people within your organization. It could be a program manager, it could be part of your accounting staff, those sorts of things. You can invite them. You may also be filling out an application, but you want your supervisor is the one that needs to actually submit it. So you can type in that person's email address, and you can give them the permissions that they need to do what you want them to do. And then you can also tell them, hey, I'm inviting you, this is what you need to do. And then if you click invite, an email will be sent to them, inviting them to be able to participate in this particular application. So the one thing we ask of you is to not provide your login information to everyone in the organization that is going to be looking at this application. So please use the collaborate button. We do want to make sure that there's some security within the use of the application and the use of the software, and to make sure that your organization's information is not accessed by people who shouldn't be accessing it. So you're going to want to either have others in your organization create their own profiles or use that collaborate button so people can still have input into the application without having to use your profile. Because once you as an individual start the application, that application is now yours. It is assigned to you, and your profile is the only one that's going to be able to make edits to it unless you collaborate. So any questions so far? Okay, so just a few more things. for your records, once you are done and you want, depending on how your organization keeps its records, and you want to make sure that you have a paper copy of everything that you've done, if you click on application packet, it will generate a PDF of everything that's within your application, as well as all of the attachments that you may have provided. So we ask for, you know, an upload of the program budget and an upload of your organizational information and some board member information and those sorts of things. When you click on that application packet, it will create a PDF that includes all of that information, as well as your answers to the application questions online. If you click on question list, that just provides a copy of the application itself, none of the attachments. So any questions about those particular things, those buttons? Okay. Then the last piece is similar to the dashboard. So again, we're going back to the dashboard. If you click on organizational history, this will give you information about specific to your organization, not just the processes that are open. So it gives you a request history. So everything that you've applied for, when you applied for it, what the name of it was, what the name of the project was, the status. So if it's been denied, if it's been submitted, if you have other things that you need to submit, how much was granted to you and how much was paid to you. This is also a place where you can update your contacts. So if you look at this list and you're like, oh, that person stopped working here approximately 5 years ago, we do want to know about that so we can remove them from the list. Or if titles have changed and those sorts of things, you as a user will only be able to edit your own contact information. So if there are others on the list that who need to be removed or updated, you'll have to contact us for that information. And then the document tabs is not something that is used by us, but this is something that we as the Community Foundation can do. We can add documents here for use by organizations. We don't currently use that tab right now, though. So, but it does exist. So, any questions?
Just to reiterate one thing, and I apologize if you already said this. If we have some projects or something coming up, but we want to run them by you before going through, this process, just to make sure that it makes sense. Is it yourself or Mark that would be the best point of contact to kind of bounce that off of? Just to make sure we're doing it properly.
Sure, I would be the primary point of contact for that. It would probably be best, just because I will be out of so Mark's in the office a lot more than I am. So if you send it to both of us, it will get answered by one or the other of us. I'm
on vacation the same time you are, so my goal was to sneak in before we both go on vacation. After, that is perfectly fine. But that is awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Any other questions right now? Okay, I'm gonna stop recording and